Hey everyone, we're now in chapter 7. Had to double check, A Life of Contentment. Once again, just making some comments about Richard Simmons III, his book, True Measure of a Man. Hope you're enjoying it. I think this is a very critical chapter. Our contentment and the way we look at life is very, very important. And so we all have unmet goals. We all have plans for our lives, and we all have disappointments, and we all get discontent at some point, and no one reaches every goal. I hope that makes you comfortable. I hope that kind of brings a little peace to you as you think through this. Nobody films a perfect series. Nobody meets every wish, every hope. So many believe that think that their circumstances are worse than everybody else's circumstances. I've failed to reach more goals than you do, so therefore you must be happier than me. But everybody thinks the same thing. Simmons opens the chapter on the bottom of 104 with this statement: we are always questioning what if. Envisioning the future can help us plan, can give us targets to shoot for, and can offer us realistic hope for a better tomorrow. Isn't it just as true that we are also at risk of spending too much time imagining a brighter future rather than living life in the present? So it's a mix of looking forward and living today as best we can. As we've said before, he says and tells us that fear has got to be the greatest enemy in our contentment. That's quickly followed by anxiety and measure up. Don't forget that we have made the point that when we have the wrong audience, anxiety occurs. When we realize that God is our audience, we can relax knowing that He created us and that He's in control. As we said in the last chapter, know God, know yourself, and know the difference. We spend our lives imagining a better life. Look at page 107, where the executive said this statement: I am desperately searching for a life of contentment. Desperately searching for a life of contentment. I laughed when I read that, thinking it was a mistake. But the sad thing is that many of us, in fact all of us, can relate to that. R.C. Sproul on page 108 says this: one indicator that reveals a person who is truly content with his life is when this person sees his friend and peers doing well and prospering, and he rejoices with them. This great sign of my contentment is when you get a raise, I'm happy. When you get a new boat or a new car or even a new set of golf clubs, I'm happy for you that you got them. If I can say that, I am truly content. Read page 108 and 109 of that story that comes across and ask yourself, am I a content person? Do you ever realize that when you worry, you're disobeying God? Worry is a disobedience to God. Look at Matthew 6 as he tells you to on page 110. He says, but seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Today's got enough trouble. Don't worry about tomorrow. He commands us to do that. So when we're worried, here's what we're telling God: that we don't think He'll take care of us. Maybe He won't give us what we want. What I really want is this, God. Now I'm worried I won't get it. And I don't trust you that you will make me happy. What's your group think about that statement? Paul figured this out Simmons quotes him on page 111, and he says, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need. I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. Paul says, I know what it is to be content. You know where he was when he said that? Anyone? In prison. Paul was in prison. Paul knew what it was to be content because he had lived through the tough times and saw God take care of him. Simmons lists 4 perspectives that begin on page 112, and I'm going to hit the summaries of these. These go about 5 pages, but here are 4 perspectives. Number 1 perspective, contentment does not come from comparison. When comparison is the sole measure, it really kills me because I'm never up to speed. Number 2 perspective, contentment comes when I know my mission, when I know that I'm on God's path, when I understand what God's doing in my life. Number 3, contentment comes when we recognize life's great treasures. Because we're all pursuing the wrong treasure. If I know what's important in life, I will be content. Because the great treasures are available to me through Christ. 4, contentment came to Paul even when death was near. On page 117, Paul should say, let's see if he says it again. Paul says, to be absent from the body is to be home with the Lord. Said that in 2 Corinthians 5:8. And he says, when I'm away from my body, when I'm dead, then I'll be at home. And so you can't hurt me even in death. All our fears and anxieties come from the thought, what will people think of me? And you know what's funny? As I've said before, those people are not even thinking of you. They are worried about themselves. Don't even worry about their thoughts of you because they don't have them. 4 questions to talk about in your group. Number 1, what is contentment's greatest enemy in the business world? Or maybe there's several enemies, but what are the great enemies of contentment in the business world? Number 2, how much of what you worry about comes true? So you're worrying about something, how much of that really comes true, and how much of our life do we really control? So what does worry get me? Why do we worry? 3, what changes could someone make to relieve some of the anxiety that plagues their life? How would you advise someone who worries? Number 4, how can we be more sure that we are on God's mission for our life? I'll give you a hint on this. How could close friends help with this? How could your small group help you with this? I hope that's helpful. I hope you'll move toward contentment in your life. See you later.